Right? They disappear into the sort of the smoke and mirrors of LA or Southern California. The quality of this tree, the rareness of this tree, should be significant in terms of consideration of getting a nice California for your collection.
With all the work you're doing on it now, the carving and wiring, would you feel safe in repotting it this spring?
No. This tree doesn't get repotted in the spring. Period. Doesn't get repotted in the spring. So you can only take so many punches to the face, right, before you get knocked out. And it's the same for a bonsai. So it's like I was explaining when we started. Whenever we do an operation like this, we go all in, right? We do what's necessary to get the job done. Okay, so if we consider a human being, maybe we've been in a car accident and we've lost a leg, right? As long as we can make the most dramatic operation first and allow the tree to recover from that, after that, then we can start sort of working down the line of significant things that have to happen to bring this tree to fruition as a bonsai. But our first step is to make sure that we get a positive response from this work, right? Positive response is going to be dictated by correct aftercare, right, and the right attention. But again, the severity of this work is not great. This is something that's very fundamental and common to junipers, something that they're clearly capable of enduring based on all of the junipers that we see as bonsai throughout the world. California's junipers are a very strong species of juniper. Much stronger than the Rocky Mountain junipers that I focus my work on every day.
Now, how many, 1 or 2 years of recovery before repot?
This will be repotted in 2013, spring of 2013. So the important thing when we repot junipers, right? Junipers' roots need heat. Okay, if they don't have heat, they don't respond well to repotting, which means that when we're talking about repotting time, now this is very contrary to some things I've heard in Southern California. And again, I will always heed to the knowledge of professionals in the area. It's been told and explained to me that it's best to repot these. You should have these done by February, right? Where I'm at, because I'm in a colder climate, California junipers get repotted more or less around April for me. Because if I don't have that kind of warmth around the roots, or that kind of warmth in the air temperature, what happens is the roots are not stimulated to grow, and the longer a tree languishes, right, the worse it is for the health of the tree. So if we consider doing this work even a month from now, late November, okay, we've missed the boat. It's too late into the period of dormancy. No longer is the tree moving, and after doing this kind of work, in order for this tree to patch itself, it's got to be allocating resources up and down the trunk. So if a tree is no longer moving, no longer active when we do this kind of work, we very much risk the tree sort of reaching a state of limbo and not being able to patch its wounds, and having those wounds become a very big problem, right? Kind of like gangrene if you don't heal a wound. Right? You get gangrene, now you got to cut off the leg. Okay, so any cracks, any breaks, any fissures, anything that the tree needs to compartmentalize to prevent the spread or desiccation of the tissue, it's got to happen in this next month. And that's why this is an ideal time, because the tree is moving a lot of resources south to its roots to prepare for winter.
Do you ever repot junipers in the fall?
Do I ever repot junipers in the fall? I don't repot junipers in the fall. Yeah, I don't. I know that that's becoming a bigger trend and a more accepted method of working with junipers. I don't know if I could get away with the same things in the fall that I get away with in the spring.
Especially in Portland area.
Well, in Portland, yeah, I mean, if you have a greenhouse, maybe it's realistic, but typically a repotting of a juniper like this, depending on the root system, will require some manipulation of heavier roots. And that means that you're going to have to dissect the root ball and you get into a situation. So I tend to do that in the spring when I know I can almost guarantee myself success. You know, one of the things that was really driven home during my apprenticeship, well, two things, and I was talking about this with somebody last night as well. You know, there was a lot of bonsai to be learned, obviously, during my apprenticeship, and there was a lot of things about life and becoming a stronger person that I gained from my apprenticeship, but one of the most significant things that I learned about being a bonsai professional, or a successful bonsai professional, or successful in any career. Even if I chose to not pursue bonsai, my apprenticeship would have benefited me in so many ways, just in terms of my approach to a pursuit in general. One of the things, or two of the things that were most significant to me was watching Mr. Kimura after being on the top of the bonsai world for 20-some years, still in the workshop working hard, working till 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, because he was trying to create something that hadn't been created yet. He had an idea and he wanted to realize the concept that he had in his mind. He was still pushing the envelope, always striving for more, and never saying that he knew everything. You would never catch Mr. Kimura saying that I know how to do it, I don't need to think about it. Right? Everything that he did, he was always learning. He told me that he's been studying watering for 40 years and he's still working because he doesn't understand it. Right? And that was important. That's a huge lesson. If you ever stop learning, you ever stop growing, you're the man, and that's the end of it, you've got the final say, the final answer, you're done. You're done in bonsai. You might as well hang it up, because we can never know everything about this. Every place that I go, it's very important that I try to learn something, and it's significant because going around the United States dealing with so many situations, it offers you the opportunity and the potential to look at what's successful, what's unsuccessful, and why. Right? Figuring out why, quantifying things in bonsai allows you to develop new techniques, new methods of doing things, new manners of improving what you've already done or what's been done before that could maybe be done better. Right? So if they stopped improving, they stopped analyzing, they stopped working to develop new methods in Japan, bonsai would be the same as it was in the 1920s when it hit the pinnacle of the market during one of two bubble periods in the country. Right? And they had the big earthquake, it shut everything down. Right? That changed the complexion of Japanese culture. However, had they stopped, that would have been the end of it. We probably wouldn't be using wire much, trees would look much differently. Right? The bonsai as we know it would not have developed, but they didn't. Right? And then Mr. Kimura came along, and the traditional sort of approach to a sedentary image that had come to dictate Japanese bonsai, what we often call a cookie cutter, which I think is a crappy term. Right? He yet again brought about another change. How can we add a dynamic nature to these trees? How can we give them a personality? How can we make these more enjoyable, improve them beyond what we've done thus far? People say, oh, you travel a lot. It's, how do you do it? How do you do this? How do you do that? Right now, this is sort of my opportunity, I think, to go around and meet as many people and get as clear of an impression of American bonsai as I can, and figure out how I can contribute in any way to improving or adding to the pool of knowledge that we refer to. And as long as American bonsai grows, my opportunity to become a professional and to really do what I love on a permanent basis and not worry about being able to survive doing it, that opportunity grows as well. So there is some selfish motivation in doing that, but ultimately, at the same time when I was in Japan, I was very much looked down on as an American, as a foreigner, as a Westerner, and there was a little bit of sort of bitterness that developed there too. At some point, I'd very much like to see American bonsai respected and maybe even revered to some extent in Asia, in Europe. And I think, the harder that we work and the more people that are dedicating themselves towards really developing their skills, finding the kind of quality material we're now starting to work on in the United States, I think the closer we're getting to closing that gap. Still got a long way. So if we had to rate the junipers of the West in terms of strength and durability, their potential to develop new roots, survive transplanting, survive heavy work, endure heavy bending, you're going to have the Sierra juniper of the Sierras, Juniperus occidentalis. That's going to be your #1 strongest species, period, hands down, no arguments. Okay? They can take the most abuse, take a licking, and keep on ticking. Okay? Second to that is going to be the California. Right? California has a higher success rate than the Utah junipers, probably by 20–30% on any average collector. Right? Now there are people that can excel at collecting any single species if they devote themselves to deciding or examining why and what's necessary to have successful collection in the zones that they're collecting and their aftercare. But Utah juniper, regardless of who's collecting them, even though they come from the same sort of desiccated condition where there's little rainfall and very hot, dry conditions, poor soil, they don't seem to have the ability to be collected with as much success. For us in Portland, Oregon, we have the potential to offer trees sort of a 4 seasons approach for a hotel for bonsai. Right? We've got humidity, we've got nice temperatures, we get good warm sun in the summer, but there's always rain, there's always moisture. A lot of the trees come there and just start to flourish even after coming out of the mountains with very few roots. based on the fact that it's such a nice place to be. California junipers have a very fine root system. If it has a healthy root system, the tree is actively growing, there isn't enough moisture that you can give them. Now that's not to say go home and just water the crap out of your trees all the time, right? But they handle the rain as well. If I had to pick the weakest tree in the West, I would say that Utahs are it. Based on the fact that their roots are very weak. Their roots are very weak and their foliage is photosynthetically inferior. Sparse, leggy foliage and strong roots, that's like oil and water, right? They don't go together. Thick, good, solid foliage means healthy roots. Strength comes from the foliage. Any juniper species is the same. It's why when we deal with needle junipers, they'll have mysterious branches die, they'll have problems, they're difficult to develop. Needle junipers have a photosynthetically inferior foliage. They can't allocate the resources to their roots, they can't develop good solid roots. If we graft them over with a scaled juniper, all of a sudden a needle juniper acts like a scaled juniper. Go ahead.
How about the one seed?
The one seed. One seed's very strong. One seed is a durable species. Okay, it's not a species that we typically see here in California at all. Right? It grows in New Mexico, Arizona, some places down into Mexico. But the one seed is extremely durable.
They don't seem to have as much contortions as the rocky.
Right. They don't grow in the same conditions. So the area that they've found to occupy, the area where they didn't have to compete as much for their position in the ecosystem, was in an area where conditions are not as favorable for contorted, sort of tortured. I've styled many one-seed junipers, particularly when I get over into Tennessee. There's a gentleman over there that made his living collecting one-seed junipers. And although they don't have the same contortion, there is good deadwood on some one-seeds. Mike Hagedorn had an amazing one-seed juniper, maybe the best one-seed juniper to ever come out of collection. It's no longer alive. Didn't like Portland, Oregon in the freak winter blizzard that happened, right? But yeah, absolutely, there are certain one-seeds that have taken on a fantastic shape, and there are people that are working with them very extensively.
What about those ones that are down in Texas?
The ash juniper is fantastic. Right, ash juniper has a foliage that's equivalent to any foliage in Japan. Maybe the closest juniper to the ash in the United States that could offer the same potential is the Rocky Mountain for quality of foliage. Other than that, you can't compete with them. But again, finding ash juniper that has good, solid deadwood and contortion and shape is very difficult. Convention next year, but I will be back. This tree will be worked on throughout the day, right? If you guys want to come back and talk to me as I'm working on it, more than happy to sit here and talk. I probably got too much to say, so don't be shy, come back and talk to me. Before we cut out for lunch, because people are starting to funnel in, I do want to say thank you for giving me your attention and spending the time with me. This was fun for me because I really revel in doing this kind of work. Very difficult, it challenges me. Nothing that's easy is fun, right? And this was very risky today, and it was very successful. So I'm happy. I appreciate David for finding this kind of quality material, and I appreciate you guys giving me your attention. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Please turn around and smile.
Cool.